Big show for you guys today. Welcome in for Verticals Podcast episode 112 here on this July afternoon here on the East Coast. July 22nd, 2025. A high atop a oven-like Jacksonville, Florida. Because I'll give you guys a little bit of what my weekend was like. First of all, it was miserable as it was hot this weekend here in the state of Florida because there wasn't a lot of rain. Typically, we get that in the afternoon, but since there was, I'm not trying to get too in the meteorological weeds here, but just the basics of it. Area of high pressure comes in, means less rain, which we usually get during the summer. Still was hot, but we didn't get the rain to cool us off in the afternoon. So that was my weekend, and it was miserable outside. It was just not great to be outdoors for that long. But thankfully, yesterday, finally got some rain. So I've never been so happy to finally get some rain, and it's nice to see that. And yeah, that was my weekend, and it was a good one, no less. But a lot of things to talk about as per usual. We got spicy predictions, SMU record projection, Michigan NCAA update, or is there an update? And also have some Marvel news. Some new Marvel stuff to talk about. So if you are new here, first of all, welcome in to the show. A couple things I want you guys to do before we get into this show. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. That's all I'm asking you for. Just subscribe to the channel, podcast feed, Twitter. That's all I'm asking for. I don't have a Patreon page. I don't make you guys give me money. I don't, this show is all free for you guys. It's completely free. I've never talked to an advertiser. This is independent media. So just be sure to do that. Subscribe, like the streams, videos. If we do individual videos. And be sure to follow us on the podcast feed and on Twitter as well. If you're on the podcast feed, and make sure you subscribe there. Of course, if on YouTube, because we're streaming on YouTube and on Spotify twice a week, Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays when we can, live. Or if not, we'll do a pre-recorded video or stream, or I guess a pre-recorded video for the folks on YouTube. On Spotify, it's pre-recorded anyway. So again, those things to sort of get out of the way there. Again, hopefully you guys had a good weekend. I certainly did, again, despite it being a billion degrees here in Florida and with no rain to cool us off in the afternoon. So as we go along here, get started, I'm going to get some water real quick, and then we'll dive into spicy predictions. So let me do that real quick. Okay, fix the little microphone here on my headset. Spicy predictions. We've been doing this for the past month or so, 2 months or so. It's been pretty good. It's been a good segment. It's a very fun segment to do, and a lot of topics we've been able to cover. Actually, let me fix something here real quick. But yeah, this is all it is. Essentially, is basically kind of like bold predictions, where it's how bold of a prediction it is. Now, instead of saying bold, because that's what everyone else uses, I figured when I get a little creative with it, and instead of doing bold predictions, call it spicy predictions. Sort of like if you're doing like a chart for hot wings, how spicy or mild they are. That's sort of the way we do it here. If you need a refresher or you're new here, mild is the prediction could happen. Warm, it means that maybe it's sort of on the fence. Hot, slightly more unlikely to happen. Spicy, totally unlikely. And we've been doing this. We have a whole list too. I have a whole sheet, not spreadsheet, a whole document that goes through all of the predictions we have made so far, and keeping track of which one's which, because eventually we will come around on this come like December, January, February, probably revisit all this. And we have 3 today, as we usually do 3 or 4 per show. First one here is a pretty interesting one. I don't think a lot of folks start talking about this necessarily. So this prediction here is Cam Coleman at Auburn. Wide receivers here, by the way, all of them are. Cam Coleman, Ryan Williams at Alabama, Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, each have 1,000 yards this season. If you don't remember, or if you don't know, Ryan Williams and, of course, Jeremiah Smith were in the same classes last year. They were the 2 superstar freshmen, both at Bama and Ohio State. Both at Ohio State and Bama, respectively. Well, it's flipped around, but Cam Coleman at Auburn was also a part of that. He was a 5-star recruit, much like those 2 were. But unfortunately, he was not on a good team last year. The quarterback limitations, and get to 1,000 yards, which is something that no Auburn receiver has done in like 20 years or something like that, which is insane. To think about if you're a more of a casual fan, but if you're someone who's been following this for a while, Auburn's not a place where you go and have a 3,000-yard pass. That's not what they've been as a school historically. So surprising to a casual, not too surprising to maybe folks who have been following this religiously, like I have. And by the way, apologies for looks like that's thunder in the background. I wanted to get this show done early enough because, again, like I mentioned at the beginning, we are finally getting storms back again in the afternoon here in Florida, here in Jacksonville. And unfortunately, thought we dodged some earlier, but I think we were going to get more. So just excuse that if you hear that in the background. But yeah, so each one of them, all three can get to 1,000 yards individually. Could that happen this year? For two of them, I think it could happen. Ryan Williams for sure, given I think the quarterback talent at Bama is a lot better. It's fairly good. I don't want to say it's a lot better than it was last year, but it's about the same or maybe just slightly better with Ty Simpson at quarterback. Jeremiah Smith, the same thing though. But the thing is, all these schools or all these teams that these guys are on will have new quarterbacks. Even Auburn with Jackson Arnold coming in, but I think the issue is with this happening, and I have it in the hot category because I know what I'm getting from Alabama and Kellen DeBoer on that offense. Yes, I know they're more of a run-heavy team, and they emphasize running the football. At least they're going to try to this year. But I know they can throw the football. I've seen Ryan Williams do it. I have seen Jeremiah Smith be capable of doing what he did last year, and he could do it again, right? He's one of the top receivers in the country. Cam Coleman, well, I know a lot of folks like Bud Elliott and all these recruiting guys who, again, I respect these guys. Kept on saying when that recruiting class was coming together, he was up there. Like he is probably the most raw of all the talent. Definitely the one that has a lot more potential in terms of the physical abilities, but he just hasn't had the quarterback there. And I don't know if Jackson Arnold is the answer for Auburn. If he is, then this could come true. All these guys could easily have 1,000 yards, and the Auburn 1,000-yard receiver curse gets broken. I don't know what's going to happen. It's in a hot category. I don't think it's going to happen. And I could be wrong. We'll see come December and January. Next one here, this is another interesting one, too, sticking in the SEC a little bit. Oklahoma and LSU have interim coaches when they play each other in November. This is not impossible either. This is, well, not possible either. This is not impossible. This is a warm in the scale of mild to spicy. This could happen. As much as I am high on both of these teams, I do have to acknowledge that there is a scenario where both of these teams are so bad. Like, let's say Oklahoma starts to crumble a little bit. LSU, we'll see what happens. But there is a scenario, mind you, if the worst case scenarios for both happen, and I've done their previews already, and I think for both it's like close to around 6 wins, I believe, for each team, or at least for Oklahoma, I think it is. I have to double check here real quick. Let me see here. I think we did Oklahoma early on. Yeah, Oklahoma's worst case was 7-5. I think LSU's was like 8-4 or something like that. I know we've done them already. Let me see. Have we done them already? Yeah, we have. Their worst case is 8-4. Regardless, if things really do fall apart, that could be a potential here. I think there is unfortunately, a scenario where they could have both have interim coaches at this point because this game's in November, like it was last year. Just they'll be in Norman instead of Baton Rouge. But even though I am high on these teams, and I'm excited about Oklahoma, the new changes of John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle, his buddy from Washington State as the OC, LSU with another year under Garrett Nussmeier and the receivers they brought in, like Barian Brown from Kentucky. I can't get this out of my head to where this could be a potential scenario. They could have interim coaches potentially, and both of these teams. Probably one of them at the very least, but two of them is pretty. It's a bold stance to take, but I don't think this is impossible. This is pretty. This is likely, I would say. So slightly likely for that one in the warm category, or correction, maybe not. It's likely, but it's not. It's not guaranteed. But yeah, it's in the warm category. And then the last one here, Nebraska makes the college football playoff. I put this in the hot category, much like the first one. Well, there's a chance this could happen, but the problem is though with their schedule, they do avoid Ohio State, but they have to play USC, being Nebraska. They play Penn State. They go to Penn State this year. They have to play Iowa. They have to play Michigan. They also have to go to Arrowhead for their neutral site game against Cincinnati. It's not the cleanest schedule, but there's a path here, right? But well, I do trust Matt Rule. I do think highly of him. I do also like, by the way, that they got rid of Satterfield, the OC, who has been atrocious everywhere he's been at. I don't care what everyone says. I mean, Bud over at Cover 3 puts out the stats all the time where when Satterfield was there, it's like this guy's track record is kind of nothing really special. And so I'm glad to bring in Holgerson as the OC. While I do think you will see some improvement, I don't know if it's going to be playoff improvement. We'll eventually do the Nebraska team projection, but I'm not too sure if it's going to be a playoff-worthy team necessarily. So I had this one in the hot category. Could have been the warm category, but I'm going to say it's slightly unlikely. And that's it for spicy predictions for today's show. And real quick here, I'm going to check the radar and make sure what's going on. I'm pretty sure it's either there's been a lot of stuff going on in my apartment buildings, been like construction stuff and whatnot. Trying to see. Yeah, there's a storm not far from here that is developing. So we'll keep an eye on it as per usual. So if you hear thunder in the background, then apologies. I can't control the weather. Contrary to popular belief for some people, but that's a joke, by the way. Let's see here as we merrily move along here. Michigan NCAA update. It's been kind of quiet lately. A lot of, a lot of distractions going on with, the preview magazine season, and you have SEC media days last week and Big Ten media days this week. But then come, a couple of days ago, Dan Wetzel, not necessarily a friend of the program, but someone who's a trusted media member at ESPN, dropped an article about an update on this situation. Of course, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, it's the whole Michigan sign stealing stuff with Connor Stallions and whatnot. Some folks who are very agree will either support him and Michigan game being punished, others will not, and to varying degrees. I'm sort of in the neutral here. It's whatever they decide, though. I think there's been a lot of things being said about this, and I think I go back to when Josh Pate over at CBS and 247, when he's brought up on his show, when he was doing it, he's been MIA for the past month or so, it seems like. When he was doing a show, when he was talking about this, he mentioned something, I think Josh was somewhat correct on his Pate, that he didn't feel like that anything else is going to come out of this because there was stuff being thrown around of lack of institutional control, which is what Hugh Freeze and Ole Miss got hit with, like bowl bans or TV reductions and stuff like that. And something that Pate brought up, and he brought this up multiple times, is that why would the Big Ten just intentionally why would they just voluntarily just punish one of their biggest brands? Like if the Big Ten, it's not like Tony Petitti, who's the commissioner there, comes from MLB baseball. He ran the MLB Network, I believe, for a little bit. I think it was on NBC for a little bit too. I don't exactly know the lore on him, but he's a TV guy. So why would a guy who used to be working TV, a commissioner of one of the biggest conferences in the country in college football, why would he intentionally punish one of his biggest brands? Like a brand and a school that brings a lot of revenue and brings a lot of excitement and eyeballs and inventory. Like why would he intentionally punish them and just axe like 25% or 30% of their inventory? Because of the Michigan brand and whatnot, they do provide a lot of inventory. That's the whole game about conference realignment and the whole idea of TV deals and stuff, right? So why would he do that? Well, it turns out the Big Ten commissioner, the aforementioned Tony Petitti, according to Dan Wetzel, I haven't read the entire article, but Dan put out a little Twitter thread of what sort of happened if you didn't want to read the whole article, didn't have time for it. The basic gist of it is that he basically sent a letter to the NCAA arguing Michigan deserved no further punishment in its advancement scouting case. That's basically what Josh Pate said was going to happen months ago. That, again, based on Tony Petitti's background in TV and whatnot, that's not even that relevant, but it is kind of relevant. And also the fact that, again, Michigan is one of the biggest brands in the Big Ten and is one of the biggest assets to your inventory. So, why would you voluntarily get rid of something that is bringing you a lot of inventory? Why would you voluntarily get it? That's stupid. That's like career suicide. If you're the Big Ten commissioner or any of these other commissioners, if you did that and you voluntarily punish one of your brands and say, oh, there's no TV and whatnot, there's a bowl ban. I guarantee you, those folks over at the executives at Fox and CBS and NBC, they would be pissed. And I'm sure they had some input on this. I guarantee you there was some, hey, you better not do this or else we're going to be really mad at you and we're going to back out the next time you guys up your negotiations or whatnot. I'm not saying that did happen, but there's a chance that something close to that did happen. So this whole, sort of letter to the NCAA and whatever power they have from Petiti saying, look, we believe no more punishment has been served. Harbaugh has his, faces suspension rules in college, and he's in NFL now, and there's a show cause, and there's like a literal zero chance he's ever come back because he wants to coach the NFL and retire as NFL coach. At this point, you can't really disagree. There's nothing else to do. I mean, unless you really want to, strip the national title and just degrade Michigan football. It's like, okay, you can do all that, but the memory of you winning that national title, if you're a Michigan fan, you live in Ann Arbor, Michigan, you live in Detroit, Michigan, or wherever in the state of Michigan, or the UP, the Upper Peninsula. If they were to strip the national title, vacate wins, would that really affect you? Well, yeah, it wouldn't look good on your Wikipedia page, on your I don't know, your database or whatever, college football history, but you as a Michigan fan will still have those memories of it. You can still go on YouTube. It's like the NCAAs and take down those videos or whatever of Michigan celebrating the national championship and the memories of them winning it. No, they're not going to take that away from you. They're not going to scrub, they're not going to go to Google and say, hey, you go to your, all of your social media platforms like YouTube and whatnot and go scrub it from the existence. They're not going to do that. And even if they do the scrubbing the national championship, they vacate wins. Again, you're not going to, those memories aren't going to just go away unless you're just have Alzheimer's, which I don't wish on anyone, but that's the feel on this. And I think this is right from Petiti and the whole team over there in the Big Ten offices. There's no reason to really go forward with this. It's not going to change anything. You're not going to, again, if you're the Big Ten, why would you voluntarily just get rid of one of your biggest assets and say, nah, you know what? They can go on the bowl ban. They cannot be shown on TV. They can, it's why would you do that? And I would, pretty sure that would have pissed off a whole lot of folks over at NBC, Fox, and CBS, because those are your partners, right? You got to make them happy. So the Michigan thing, well, there is technically no resolution. At least to me, this signals that we're not going to get anything major. So, the joke was down in one of the comments of Dan's little tweet thread there. I think one of them from a Michigan fan. This is kind of funny. It's rough morning in Columbus and East Lansing. Look, there's a lot of things about this sport that I hate. There's a lot of things that I like about this sport still. And there's, the things I hate are very micro level, not mesoscale or mesoscale, if you will, micro level. But the fan interactions from some of these guys, the guy who said, oh, rough morning in Columbus and East Lansing, and OSU and MSU fans are sick right now and whatever. It's great. It really is great. Love the passion from some of you Michigan fans. It's great. Never change at all. Never change at all. As much as this sport has been changing, the fans, you'll never change. You guys are great. I'm going to get some more water here, and then we'll continue on. Again, apologies for the thunder in the background. Again, living in Florida, this is one of the things I don't like about this time of the year, that when I'm doing a show live in the afternoon, this happens. I don't know if you guys can hear it on the YouTube side or podcast side. If you do, then, I don't know. There's nothing I can do about it. So, again, your feed, podcast feed did not go out, but I'm checking the radar. And there's a big storm to our east, over on the coast where I live. We're not that far from the Jax Beach area, if you know the region. So we're going to get some weather here in a little bit, because that storm, as it's developing, it will continue to grow as it goes, because we didn't have storms earlier. Like I mentioned at the start of the show, there were storms to our south, but we here in downtown haven't had storms yet, at least my part of town. And I am very much so I'm guaranteeing that we're probably going to get more and more stormy weather here in the next hour or so, if not that. So, I'm going to try to get this show done here fairly quickly, so you guys don't have to suffer through hearing thunder in the background and whatnot. Because believe it or not, last year that happened. Horrible mistake. I watched back on the replay of some of our older shows, especially on Spotify. Frustrating hearing that in the background. Just constant banging noises. It's, not aesthetically pleasing. Of course, we don't have a proper studio here, necessarily. Yeah, there goes another one. Yeah, so it's must be that time. It must be 1 o'clock in the afternoon here in Florida during the summer. 2025 team record projections. We've been doing this for well over 2 months now. We've done a whole bunch of teams. And we've gone through most of the major teams so far. There's a few we haven't done yet. Like this one, SMU, we haven't done yet. But yeah, we've been doing this. It's been great. Again, much like the spicy predictions, we will revisit some of these. I think we did this back in December and January and February. It was like predictions versus a reality. So we'll bring that back again. That segment, sort of comparing what we thought versus what ended up happening. SMU last year, of course, everyone knows what happened last year with the first season in the ACC, massive success for them. For the first, well, really since Sonny Dykes was there, that's like back like in 2019. SMU's back. They've been back for a while since then, and I think last year was sort of the microcosm of that, getting to the ACC championship game, let alone being in a major conference again for the first time since before the death penalty. So they went to the ACC championship game. They lose in an instant classic to Clemson, get to the playoff game against Penn State. It is what it is. Very successful season for them. Brett Lashley, I would imagine he's going to be a very hot commodity, I think, in the coaching industry when it comes to head coaching openings potentially in the future. I'm not saying that's going to be a guarantee he will leave or anything, but I would imagine if some of these jobs in like the Southeastern region were to open up for some reason, don't be surprised if you hear like his name and like John Sturmrell, obviously, but Brett Lashley's name will be mentioned, particularly in one school in Lee County, Alabama. I've been hearing his name a lot, even though that job's not open yet. But anyway, sort of break down sort of the team here a little bit. Mike Jennings, your quarterback. He's your dual threat guy. He was the cornerstone of your offense last year. Can he take another step? 3,000-yard passer, 27 touchdowns. He can also run around as well. Wasn't the starter last year. I believe it was like the Preston Stone guy who, if you guys don't remember that weird game at Nevada where it was like 60 degrees and it was like really weird weather too, a weird weather game. Week 0 game. They struggled. They bring Jennings in and they end up surviving. So he didn't start the year last year, but he ended up putting up good numbers despite that. So that, hey, he's back. We'll see if he takes another step right. I think his big issue was ball security, sort of one of those oopsie-daisy quarterbacks. Wide receivers, Brinson and Jordan Hudson, not UNC's Jordan Hudson. That's the other Jordan Hudson, the receiver. They are back. Your tight ends, the RJ Maryland guy, he's back. Could be one of the best tight ends in the country. O-line, fairly good. We'll see. Hopefully it will improve in 2025 because it was a bit of a weak point last year. Running back room, we will see. They're going to bring some new guys in. Definitely the biggest question, if you will, on the offense. Defense should be okay. They bring back Isaiah. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He's that really good safety for them. He was good for them last year. The defensive line should be okay. They were sort of okay. And again, the thing about some of these old, these former G5 teams, like the same thing in the Big 12, their talent roster, you have to understand, is not the same level as like the other teams in some of these conferences, especially in the ACC, in this case with SMU. So going over them, sort of their talent, just in general, right? Both offense, defensively, and even, I guess, special teams. The talent, there's some good players, like, Jennings, the quarterback there. He's fairly good. The other parts around him, like outside of the tight ends and maybe some of the receivers, they're not the best. They're okay, but they're not up to snuff. They're still sort of in that G5 in that liminal period, that transitional period, if you will, to getting better talent in. Coaching staff is one of the best. I mean, they have Brett Lashley again. He's been there for a number of years now. I mean, like Bill Connolly thinks that his impact has not been, or at least Lashley's impact on the sport has not been fully felt yet. Like he's not been talked about a whole lot. Of course, Bill Connolly very popular among the crowd of the power ratings and stuff like that in S&P Plus. Again, I think Lashley, you will hear his name come coaching carousel time. I think. The rest of their staff's pretty good. Connor Morgan is their director of player personnel. He's way up there in terms of recruiting, in terms of helping SMU get very good recruiting classes. He's top 5, or at least he's very good, or well regarded nationally among a lot of the experts out there. So, with all that being said, and the talent they have there, and their coaching staff, as much as I think of them, their schedule is interesting. So let me go find it. Here it is. So they play their FCS team, their in-state Texas team. They get Baylor at home. And this is Baylor, by the way, coming off of a game against Auburn. So how about that? 2 P4 teams back-to-back. Then you get Missouri State. It's on the road. Newcomer, welcome, Missouri State. Then they get the rivalry game with TCU. So their non-con's kind of, regional, but still tough. No less. 2 Big 12 teams in there. Then they get their ACC schedule. It's like Syracuse at home, Stanford. So you don't have to go out west, at least early in the year. You have to later in the year. But then you get your really, really tough games in a hurry. So it's like at Clemson, you get Miami, Louisville comes to town, then you go to California late in the year, which is always fun, right? Based on all of that, the talent they have there, and again, look, as much as I respect Brett Lashley, I don't really expect this team to take a major step forward. In fact, I think it's going to take a step backwards. As much as I like Brett Lashley, I like what they have there, at least at the quarterback position. Just cut the turnovers. I like their tight end room. It's just something about me. It's sort of like what happened with Hugh Freeze at Liberty, where you start to hear him get considered for a lot of these like big, like other P4 jobs, like the Big 2 jobs, like jobs in the Power 2, like at any of the number of schools, right? Especially in the SEC, where a lot of folks, including me, unfortunately, believe there will be a lot of jobs open, because that's just what this year is shaping up to be. I'll be stunned if it didn't happen. You're going to hear his name attached to, again, all of these jobs. I guarantee you it's going to happen, and it's going to. I can just imagine it to where, sort of like again with Hugh Freeze at Liberty, because again they were having a good year in his final year, but then you start hearing like the Auburn rumors and all that, and all of this and that. It's clearly a distraction. That's when they lost to New Mexico State and Jerry Kill the first time, which has become a trend for them lately, at least for him, I guess, not Liberty, but Hugh Freeze as a coach versus Jerry Kill is not going over pretty well, and that started that year, and now it's because of the distractions and whatnot. So because of that, best case scenario is 9-3. Again with the Baylor, TCU on the schedule, along with Clemson, Louisville. I think Miami's on there too, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so they could, I guess, best case scenario, they win. If they're of those 6 games, they split those and they split the others in terms of losing them. So that's maybe the best case scenario. I guess 9-3 could be on there. Worst case scenario is 6-6. And this is a tough schedule. Low key, a pretty tough schedule in the ACC, given their standards and given the non-con. Again, most of those games, certainly the Baylor game was scheduled years in advance, so they couldn't change it. So, 6-6, worst case scenario, and that also includes, maybe there's an injuries and whatnot. I think the most reasonable scenario, again, some of this is because, again, I have a feeling you're going to hear his name being mentioned for head coaching jobs. It's going to be distracting. I do, unfortunately, believe they will step back majorly. I think 7-5 is on the cards here. Again, this is not a guarantee. But for SMU, I do expect them to sort of go down a little bit. And actually, I forgot to add in the FanDuel number. I'm not a sponsor of the show. Just use them for research purposes. Let's see here. FanDuel win totals. I have to add it in. Because usually I mention it. Kind of curious to see what they have them at as the page loads here. Go to the old ACC. SMU, it is 8.5. For their over win total. So 8.5 over under. That was posted back in January. Hasn't changed that much. I don't think. There we go. I think they're going to go under that. So how about that? Now, again, the best case scenario is over that. So there is a scenario where they do match that, but there's also, of course, they go worse than that and somewhat slightly not as bad. But best case 9-3, worst case 6-6, reasonable 7-5. So I think that's fair to a certain extent for SMU. Again, if you are new here, welcome to the show. Again, we do this show Thursdays and Tuesdays during the week around the afternoon. Streaming on YouTube. This will go on Spotify later. Hopefully, I know I've been delayed on it a little bit. I've been sort of behind on that stuff, getting the episodes out on time. Hopefully, it'll be out sometime tomorrow. Of course, we're also very active on Twitter as well. So, again, checking radar again. Yeah, we're going to get some rain here in just a minute. And there's a decent storm out to my east, or I guess northeast technically. And yeah, it's starting to get dark outside my window here. So, just make sure you subscribe to the channel, podcast feed, Twitter. That's all I ask. Again, this is independent media. Never, ever talk to a advertiser, or no advertiser ever came to me. Unless it's one that I really do like, an advertiser that I can trust. That's different. But I'm not like, we're not like over the moon about it. And we would much rather stay independent, true independent media versus not independent media, if you will. There's finally some Marvel news as we sort of move along from college football. No Q&A today, mainly because there's really There's a lot of Marvel stuff to get into, so it kind of takes place at the Q&A, and also because of the stories and whatnot, I kind of want to get this done a little bit quickly than usual. But this article that came out, well, a bunch of articles. It was really more of like a media session, if you will, for Kevin Feige folks. Of course, they have Fantastic Four coming out. Well, the premiere was yesterday. It technically comes out, I think, international tomorrow, I believe, and it comes out in the U.S. on Thursday and Friday. So we'll touch on the reviews here towards the very end. But so there was a big article that came out, sort of detailing the future of the MCU going forward. Didn't want to go for the whole article, just some of the highlights that were mentioned in Feige's interview. This is more of like a compilation of things I remember from it. Not exactly everything, but just a reasonable, I guess, offering of what was mentioned in the article, or several articles. So it's not just one. But I guess the big one to really go into is the stuff about Jonathan Majors and Kang and what happened. So Feige in the articles and everything, all the tabloids and whatnot, I mentioned, finally talked about the Jonathan Majors stuff, which happened 2 years ago now. Sort of mentioning, talking about, he didn't mention the Majors by name, which is not surprising, PR stuff. Don't want to, drag yourself in the quicksand or whatever. But he mentioned it again, sort of ambiguously mentioning the actor, and sort of talked about how, there were plans to bring in Dr. Doom and do this whole thing of RDJ early, that they were eventually going to move on from Kang, and he wasn't, quote unquote, Thanos, if you will, or at least that level, which I think some of that is true. To use a quote from Obi-Wan here, from Star Wars, from a certain point of view. There were plans from a lot of folks. Alex Perez brought this up. I think Jeff Snyder over on him and John Roca's show back this time last year, bringing up, hey, there were plans to bring in Dr. Doom into Secret Wars and have Kang still be the main villain, but Doom would literally hijack the movie and become the primary antagonist, sort of kind of like how he was in the old Secret Wars comics, right? Both the 15 version and the original version, or at least the both versions, and that was being reported widely by a lot of those people like those. And I think the plan was to have Kang. I mean, heck, you had a movie titled The Kang Dynasty, and you had, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania was sort of, parading Kang as this next Thanos level villain. And then it turns out the movie was trash, even though I think a lot of folks, including me, thought, Majors did a good job. This movie was terrible, right? I think that all of them can agree on that. Then the whole legal stuff happens, and that didn't help anything. And that was sort of, Marvel's, I guess, parachute, if you will, to get out of it. Of course, there was the stuff about that retreat they went on and all the meetings and stuff they had about, hey, with the major stuff going on, what's our contingency? What's our, sort of way to get us out of here? Our sort of get out of jail card, which eventually became RDJ, Dr. Doom being the focal point of those two movies, and just saying, hey, look, we have Loki season 2 coming up, have Majors coming because it's, contractually, or at least illegally, he's still obligated to appear in that. So we're not going to change anything, at least of that, but we are going to leave it ambiguous to the character's fate, despite the fact that Ant-Man the Wasp, Quantumania had that whole post-credit scene at the Council of Kangs, and, setting that up. So that's what happened. It was very much so legal stuff, and him eventually getting charged, which I think it's clear was the nail in the coffin for him, at least Major's time at Marvel. And of course, he gets terminated immediately after, and then they pivot to Dr. Doom then next summer. So that's true, but the way it went down, the way, Kevin sort of went about it, it's made it seem like they were just going to replace Jonathan Majors just randomly anyway, which is not true. There is a little bit of not a spin, but just not revealing everything, because I think those folks know that it's out there. Like, everyone sort of knows what the whole story was, but they're just not saying it out there out loud. Other things, of course, they brought up a lot of the X-Men stuff and confirming that, what was it, Jake Schreier, he did Thunderbolts. He is doing the X-Men movie. It's going to be more based on the younger characters. So think like, I don't know, like a X-Men Academy or something like that, which will happen after Secret Wars. And then there's the whole reboot, which is, again, old news. We know that was going to happen for a while now. Like, Alex Perez was talking about it. Josh Hoover of Jet of Nerds was talking about it. Like, it's not anything new. We knew eventually with the multiverse stuff, the Flash movie for DC, that it was going to do a very similar thing. It was going to reboot everything. Everything was going to change a little bit. You're going to say goodbye to the original X-Men cast, or to the ones who are returning. For the most part, saying goodbye to the legacy characters at Marvel and the MCU. that you'd eventually see all this sort of change, and the whole Marvel films going forward will be very different. And he confirmed that. So it seems like, again, people like Alex Perez and Jeff Snyder, they're not dumb. Like, they know what they're talking about. They're not idiots. They're not some bum in someone's basement, typing on Twitter 24/7 and that type of stuff. So, mostly that stuff is the real big stuff. Another big one is that they are bringing back Michael Waldron. He was doing stuff for Loki and Doctor Strange 3 or Doctor Strange 2. He was originally attached to this, I believe, at some point. Him and Jeff Loveness, and of course Loveness gets fired after Quantumania, after that was, or how bad that was, and then of course they bring back the Russo brothers, and they bring back McFeely, I believe, as he was one of the writers for their Avengers films and the Captain America movies. So they bring in Waldron, makes sense because he has familiar with the TVA stuff and sort of the multiverse aspects and whatnot. So it makes sense to bring him back. And I don't have much of a problem with him necessarily. I think Loveness was a issue, or one of the issues on Quantumania, at least his style. So the article from the MCU, or at least the news coming from that big info dump, a lot of it we sort of knew. A lot of it is interesting that he confirmed it. Excuse me. Last little bit here, and then we'll get out of here because the storms are really coming in to my area. As I check radar real quick here, pretty sure, it's creeping its way over here. And eventually, again, since we have not had storms yet, it'll continue to backbuild. And, I'm not trying to get into the world of meteorology here, but yes, we are, it's getting dark out, and we're going to get some storms here. So to wrap up real quick, Fantastic Four, as I mentioned, premieres yesterday. You had a couple of folks doing their out of theater reactions and whatnot, sort of their quick, a minute video reaction. And now with the embargo lifting a little bit, you can talk more freely about it. There's also the Rotten Tomatoes stuff. So far from what I've seen, very positive. So on Twitter, did a little fun here. Back in May, when this was being test screened, I put out this tweet, and it was saying, so the Fantastic Four really is a cursed franchise. That was in reaction to the screenings and some of the mixed stuff about, the CGI looks unfinished. And a little bit was a bit sarcasm, but a little bit of it was, is it really going to be cursed or whatnot? Well, at the moment, based on the reviews that have been compiled at the moment, of course, the Rotten Tomatoes score could go either up or down, probably down a little bit, because usually if it's high enough, or regardless if it's high or low, it's going to end up finishing lower than it did when it first came out. So when about an hour ago, or as of an hour ago, I haven't checked it yet, it was in the high 80s, near 90. So of course I tweeted out, curse is broken. How about that? So again, as I said before, and I'll continue to say this again, back when this movie, or at least in the first trailer came out, you guys know how I feel about this, and how I've always, because I remember watching, the old Fantastic Four movies back in the late 2000s, and they were fine for what they were. It could have been a lot better. The 2015 version. So what they've never done, and as popular as the Fantastic Four is, and they're the Marvel's first family, and they have a lot of history, they've never had a proper film. Never. And they finally got one. They finally got a huge one. I know a lot of folks are still, doing the whole argument with, this or Superman, which one's better. That's a topic for Thursday's show. I think we'll do that again. We touched on that back in March, I believe, or in April when the first trailer came out. I'm just glad it's getting good reviews. I'm just glad that we're finally getting a Fantastic Four film that is not shitty, that's not, just overly horrible like the 2015 version, or just half-baked version of, the half-baked version of Galactus we got back in 2007. I'm just happy we're finally getting a proper Fantastic Four film, and happy the reviews are fairly good. A lot of the folks who I trust, Christian Harloff and John Roca, they seem very positive about it. There's been some criticisms, for example, it's been got leaked yesterday that, Franklin Richards is, while they have a child actor playing him, or I guess a baby actor playing him, an actual infant, they had to use CGI for some of the scenes, which okay, fine if they were doing it to, I'm assuming, to use his powers, whatever, fine. Apparently it looks a little weird, but oh well. I've also heard the beginning of the film, the opening act, the first act, the pacing's a little weird, so I can see where some folks are kind of but apparently Galactus, as it looks from the trailers and what we've heard, amazing. Just insane. The acting is great. The dynamics, the four main characters is good. I've heard that Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, probably the highlight of the film. You know, I'm sure all the other characters like, Ben Grimm and Johnny Storm and Reed Richards, they get their moments to shine, but apparently she is the best part of the film, which is interesting. A lot of folks for, trying to spin it into some controversy, like, oh, it's some like alternative motives or anything like that. I never thought that was the case, and it seems like everyone who has seen it so far has, for the most part, praised it and said, hey, she gives off a pretty good performance and she's great in it. So how about that? I've also heard that the set design is great. The world building with this alternate universe, which is 828. Interesting play on words there, eating to eat. Or I guess great to eat, I guess. But whatever. That whole universe, the fictional New York, looks cool. I mean, we saw that from the trailers and whatnot. Aesthetically, it's pretty cool. The world building and stuff like that. So, again, I'm just happy we finally got a Fantastic Four film that's not total crap, and it's actually good, and they're doing it justice. And if it is that good, and I'll probably go and see it eventually. That gives me hope for Avengers Doomsday that there will be, of course, playing a major role in that. And in terms of the post-credit scenes, I don't know for sure because there's been a lot of talk, and I guess you can talk, quote-unquote spoilers here, I guess somewhat. There's been a lot of talk about, who was going to be in, who would be in this movie. There's a lot of talk about, oh, they shot some of Chris Evans and, potentially the, Fox X-Men characters would be, or not X-Men, Fantastic Four characters would be coming back. So it'd be like, who was it? Like Jessica Alba, Michael Chiklis, that group could potentially be in one of the post-credit scenes. There was a lot of rumors about that. There's also been rumors about Dr. Doom showing up and is just a stunt double in a random suit, and you don't hear or see anything else besides just that. So there's been a lot of confusion about that. There's also been a lot of confusion about who else is in the cameo. To be honest, there's certainly good options, like the ones I just mentioned. It's just whatever one's true. Again, I guarantee you, they definitely shot a whole bunch of stuff for this. That's gonna not make the cutting floor, whether it's cameos, the post-credit scenes, or whatnot. Regardless, we'll probably never see that come to the light if it is the case that they did shoot some with Doctor Doom, or they did shoot some with the old Fox Fantastic Four cast, or regardless of that, we won't know for sure when the movie comes out officially and when spoilers start coming out. But yeah, just glad we're getting actual good Fantastic Four reviews, and it's actually the only movie so far, because it's only been a small handful, and unfortunately, those other three were horrible for varying degrees, some worse than others. But yeah, glad to get good feedback from Fantastic Four. Sounds like it's a good film. Sounds like, so far from Marvel this year, besides Brave New World, which 2 for 2. And there's summer releases. How about that? Who would have thought of that? So, and that's it for our show. So you got it in right before it started pouring down on us and storming outside. So we'll be back on Thursday because of the weather. We'll try to get it done a little bit earlier. Today, it just happened to be the storm started a little bit earlier than anticipated. So yeah, we'll try to get the show in a little bit earlier on Thursday. So yeah, so we'll get this out. Podcast feed, hopefully the podcast version should be out in a timely manner until Thursday. So again, we have Big Ten Media Days going on. We'll talk more about that on Thursday because it just started today in Las Vegas. So until Thursday, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday and Wednesday, and we'll see you on the next stream.